Okay, it's going to be a review of SummerSlam 2002. This is going to be the 20th anniversary celebration retrospective. So yeah, it's finally here. Been looking forward to doing this video. So if you haven't seen it yet, yeah, SummerSlam 2002, one of the more highly regarded pay-per-views in WWE history, maybe the very best. But let's get right into it. This took place on August 25th, 2002. From the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, 14,000 in attendance. The pay-per-view buy rate was 540,000 buys, which, you know, it's down from the last couple of SummerSlams, but it's still like the highest, you know, 2002 number. Like once you get out of WrestleMania season, it's definitely a lot higher than, you know, what the WWE was doing for the fourth quarter of 2002. So let's get right down to it. First match of the night. And trust me when I tell you, there is no filler on this show. Every single match has a Hall of Famer. You know, the worst worker on this show, it might be like Test or Lance Storm. That's how good the show is. So first match of the night, we got Kurt Angle taking on Rey Mysterio. So this is Rey Mysterio's pay-per-view debut, believe it or not. And someone brought to my attention from the podcast that, you know, usually nobody from WCW wins their first pay-per-view match. I mean, look at it. Like everyone loses their first pay-per-view match from WCW. The only one to do it was actually Goldberg. You know, Goldberg did it against The Rock. But, you know, Goldberg came in with such hype. You know, you definitely understand why he went over The Rock. But yeah, you know, if Mysterio was going to wrestle Jamie Noble, Chavo, or, you know, Billy Kidman, you could definitely have a gripe about Mysterio losing. But because it's Kurt friggin' Angle, you know, Angle definitely had to go over here. He wasn't in the championship match, you know, and, you know, they were grooming him to be in the main event of WrestleMania. So, yeah, Mysterio losing to Angle here, it was not a big deal at all. Just want to mention, saw Kurt Angle last night on Raw. I was a little bit disappointed with the reaction. I just thought Pittsburgh, it's his hometown. I just thought the fans should have been more appreciative, but it's just a smack in the face that, you know, so much time has passed since these days right here. So, but yeah, the bottom line is I think this is the best, definitely one of the best openers in WWE history, quite possibly the best non-WrestleMania opener. I mean, the only two matches I could think of that could compete with this is Bret and Owen and Daniel Bryan and Triple H, but those got a lot more time than this. The only gripe about this match is, you know, the length of it. It's possibly one of the better matches under 10 minutes. I kind of feel very similar to this, the same way I feel about the WrestleMania 22 triple threat. Just very high replay value. You know, they don't let you breathe here. I mean, it's like 10 minutes of just, you know, breathtaking action between Angle and Mysterio. And who would have thunk it that, you know, these two would have had the chemistry here, and they had it for years. I mean, Angle and Mysterio had a great match every single year Angle was in the WWE from 2002 to 2006, and this one just set the tone. I think you know, Vince was talking about this to Angle on the podcast, and he said that he wanted Angle to set the tone, kind of telling him, you know, the first match of the night is most important. We want you to set an amazing tone. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, there's been times where an opener is so deflating that it could set a negative tone and it could affect the rest of the show. I think WrestleMania 28 is an example of that. So I think more than anything, this just created such an amazing atmosphere that it definitely carried over into some of the other matches. But yeah, bottom line is, I was really impressed with Mysterio here. I mean, this was really my first time really experiencing, you know, what Rey could really do in a ring, because, you know, I wasn't a WCW fan. So just getting to know Rey, you know, the person, the performer, it's just one of those things that, you know, Mysterio just blew away, I think, everybody's expectations over the last 20 years. I mean, he's still doing it, man. And, you know, the combination just worked here because everyone knows Angle and Mysterio could carry anybody to a good match. And this is just one of those cases where two great wrestlers just have, you know, more chemistry than you could have imagined. I mean, Angle's suplexes were just incredible here. You know, Mysterio, you know, he was hitting things that he hadn't hit in years. You know, just everything here. You know, the probably the most memorable spot in the match. And people have really copycatted over the years. When Jimmy Gordero actually stops Mysterio from doing the helo, and then Mysterio just ignores him and does the helo over the referee on the Angle. That was an amazing spot. I mean, there is so many great things here with Mysterio going for the West Coast pop, Angle actually kicking out of it, Angle's reversal of the Frankensteiner into the ankle lock was just breathtaking. So, yeah, you could go on and on about how good the match was. And plus, it has that dual atmosphere where you got the males chanting for Angle, you got all the kids and the women saying that Angle sucks. But, yeah, it's just a great match for Mysterio. Even though Mysterio taps out to the ankle lock, I don't think this match hurt him at all. And like I said, man, Mysterio and Angle would go on to have, a great match every single year. They would have a great match on September 12th on SmackDown. Then they would have another great match in January 2003. August of 2004, right after SummerSlam. And then they had a match from Japan in 2005, that No Way Out tournament match. And then in 2006, I think they had a world title match on SmackDown, which Mark Henry interfered in. All of those matches hit the 4-star level. And obviously the WrestleMania 22 match, the triple threat, the work that they did in that match was awesome as well. So, yeah, Angle was probably, and I hate to say this, man, because I think you could definitely argue when you incorporate Eddie's work from WCW, you probably say Eddie. But, just in terms of the WWE, I would say Angle was probably Mysterio's best opponent. All right, next up we got Chris Jericho. Taking on Ric Flair, second match of the night. All right, so this is another, they showed a little bit of the build-up here. Didn't get a video package. So Jericho actually not drafted to Raw, but defected to Raw. And then on July 30th, you had the Raw is Jericho Part 2 with the show ending right there. And then there was a backstage segment where he beat up Flair, blooded him up, and then Flair retaliated by destroying the Fozzy equipment. I guess Fozzy had a performance, and Flair just took the speakers and just destroyed the set of equipment. So that's pretty much how the feud went there. But there's much more to it than that. I mean, these two guys, Flair and Jericho, were feuding when Jericho won the Undisputed Championship. Jericho even said, that Flair was jealous of him because after all the accolades, after all the championships, Flair never had the chance to become Undisputed Champion. So it really kind of boiled over from the initial stages of Jericho's Undisputed Championship reign. So it's a match that I'm glad that they actually went back to. And, just looking at Flair and Jericho, definitely two of the greatest of all time. I think people have stated that before when looking at this match. But, what these two really have in common, even more so than Triple H and Shawn, is just the wide variety of work that they've done. Obviously it's well documented. Jericho's wrestled in promotions all around the world, but you could also say the same thing about Flair. Flair wasn't just a WCW guy. Flair's got so many great matches from Japan, so many great matches from, other territories than just the Crockett's. Even some of the stuff he did in World Class Championship Wrestling, even going up to AWA. I mean, there's just so many different promotions that Flair and Jericho have participated in over the years. So I think that's what made it really a unique combination. So Jericho was actually saying here that it was his idea to have Flair go over, which, I think people had some gripes about it. And I wasn't a big fan of it at the time, with Jericho actually tapping out to Flair, because it's like, Jericho, you can't put over everybody, because this is what, his fourth pay-per-view loss in a row since he lost to Triple H at WrestleMania. So it's just too many losses for Jericho at that time. But what I think it did for Flair was it really kind of set the tone for Evolution. This was really the catalyst for Flair and Triple H, joining each other. I'll talk more about it once we get to Unforgiven, but really the loss that Flair had at Unforgiven, that's what really triggered the Triple H promo to inspire Flair into siding with him. So in a lot of ways, this is what really got the ball rolling in terms of, just getting Flair back to, his confidence to where they needed it to be. So you definitely understand it. But yeah, in terms of the actual match, I thought Jericho was great here. This is during his King of the World gimmick. He kept on saying to Flair, "I'm the king of the world. Come on, you son of a bitch. I'm the king of the world." So yeah, I mean, the king of the world thing, it seemed a little bit over the top, but I thought it was pretty funny. And they did some really good stuff out of the figure four here. Obviously, Flair makes Jericho tap with the figure four, but the setup here, was really, really well done. You know, Flair was actually going for the walls of Jericho. Then it looked like he was going to do a half crab. Then Jericho actually counters it into a figure four. Flair starts selling that like crazy. Then Flair actually gets to the rope, and he actually taps, but he's actually on the rope. So Jericho did make Flair tap first. And then, you know, the ref bump is kind of weird. It's almost like Jericho unintentionally knocked into him. You could barely even notice it. And then all of a sudden, Flair actually hits the low blow, and then he puts Jericho in the figure four to make him tap out. But yeah, I thought this was good stuff. You know, Flair definitely looked like he got in much better shape since WrestleMania. Without a doubt, much better shape than the last match on Nitro, where, you know, he had to wrestle with the shirt on. So in a lot of ways, I feel like, you know, this was as good as it could have been. I thought this was definitely good. It definitely wasn't the worst match of the night. Even though they were in the death spot, you know, you still get two legends going at it. And the build up here, I think it was more layered than people give it credit for. So definitely good stuff there. But, you know, if you want to gripe that Jericho shouldn't have lost here, I could definitely understand it. But like I was saying, guys, it really, you know, I think it's a victory that Flair really needed. You know, going into the Evolution storyline. So I think that's a good way of looking at it. All right, next up we have Edge taking on Eddie Guerrero. And yeah, this is you know, probably the most underrated match of the night. All right, so I remember the promotional stuff for SummerSlam 2002. They actually promoted the whole card. And when I saw the first promotional commercial, I think when you see this match, you say to yourself, holy shit, like this card is just so stacked. And I think Edge and Eddie like really put it over the top. It really is like that underrated gem from the show that I think people probably forget about. But yeah, I mean, this could have had a video package as well. You know, they didn't show anything here from the build-up. All I remember was Eddie Guerrero and Benoit defected from to SmackDown from Raw, and they were in a lot of tag matches with Edge and The Rock, and you know, Guerrero and Benoit attacked Edge from behind multiple times. I think Eddie had some promos on Edge where he was a little bit jealous of his looks and jealous of him because he was attracting a lot of the female demographic. I mean, that's really the only thing I can remember from the build up here. But you know, they just told the story in the ring. The story was told in the ring. You know, this is Edge's first, you know, one of his first matches back from the shoulder injury. So he had that steel cage match on SmackDown where he actually speared Kurt Angle off the top rope, and he actually separated his shoulder. So Eddie Guerrero was actually still working on the shoulder, and Edge just sold it really well here. I mean, you know, Eddie Guerrero did some really, really good things to go to work on the shoulder. I mean, the drop kick to the shoulder was very well done. The frog splash to the shoulder. So yeah, I mean, just great stuff from Eddie. I thought Edge's selling was pretty good. Now, some of the knocks on this match is it's definitely not the best Edge and Eddie Guerrero match. I think the matches from September, the Unforgiven match and the SmackDown No DQ match, they really kind of found it. And those matches were just, you know, a little bit more of a roller coaster ride. But this is still good, man. This is still solid stuff. It really set the tone, you know, for what these two guys would do later on. And, you know, they still they gave you like really good storytelling with Edge's selling, but they still gave you like a lot of action. You know, Eddie took a suplex out of the ring where he landed on his ankles. You know, even the spot where Eddie's doing the old school, he's walking the rope, but then Edge actually gives him the Flair bump out of the old school. Then Edge sucks it up with the shoulder pain and hits him with the spear. So really good stuff. I really like the match. You know, it's definitely not their best match. You know, that's probably one of the arguments that people use against the show. Well, yeah, Edge and Eddie Guerrero, they had much better matches on SmackDown. So how could you say this is the best pay-per-view of all time? But it's still like really friggin' good. It's still great, man. Eddie was just such an amazing shape here. And the other knock you can knock on this match is that, you know, Edge, for whatever reason, it seemed like he was more over on SmackDown. It seemed like SmackDown had like that family audience where you could really push Edge as the Sting, as the babyface. I think sometimes when you get into this pay-per-view environment with a lot of the smart marks, it was a little bit harder for Edge, especially at this time. But I thought him and Eddie definitely brought the best out of each other. Okay, next up we got the Tag Team Championship match. We got the Un-Americans of Christian and Lance Storm taking on Booker T and Goldust. Okay, so the Booker T Goldust stuff, I mean, it was really funny. I mean, they were doing, backstage skits at Judgment Day when Booker T was trying to hook up with this Nia Long looking girl, and Goldust would actually pop up between the sheets. I thought that was a great segment. Even some of the stuff that they did with The Rock was really funny. So at first it seemed like Booker T was disgusted by Goldust and, was kind of putting him down. But it ended up being like, once shit got serious with the Un-Americans, it was like they united. And I guess the story they were trying to tell was that, the unlikeliest of Americans, team up together. Like, even though you don't have a lot in common with somebody, that's what makes up America. Like, Booker T and Goldust, you get different personalities teaming up together. So I think that's why they went ahead with this match right here. So as far as the Un-Americans go, wasn't a huge fan of it. I would definitely agree. It was great for them to get heat. It gave them really, really good heat. I would definitely say that. But, the timing of it was a little bit weird. I think we're still recovering from 9/11. Especially with guys that you love or guys that you really look up to, like Lance Storm and Christian. These are great guys, great workers. I mean, they live in, I guess Lance Storm still lived in Calgary at the time, but Test and Christian actually lived in Tampa, and obviously they don't hate America. They weren't comfortable doing the gimmick, and I just think this, like, whenever you force somebody to do something that they're not comfortable with, it's only going to last for so long, and there's just no way you can do it 100%, to your capability if your heart's not fully invested in it. So it's coming out now that they clearly were uncomfortable with it. That might explain why they scrapped it. I think after Unforgiven, they just went with Regal and Lance Storm being more of a international thing. And then Jericho started teaming up with Christian once you get into September. So the Un-American thing was very short-lived, but make no mistake about it. I love the team. I just wish they would have been a little bit more like Bret in 97. Like Bret had a line where he said, "It's not so much that I'm anti-American. It's just I'm very pro-Canadian." So I wish they would have taken the pro-Canadian approach to it. The whole thing with teasing of burning the American flag, I think that's when it got a little bit too far, and maybe that's why they decided to scrap it. But hey, I thought it was cool. Christian and Lance Storm, they did a lot of, pretty simplistic match. I mean, it's arguably the worst match of the night, but what this match really did was Un-Americans got a lot of heat. The fans were just dying for the Booker T hot tag. So, the fans were fully invested in this type of match. And that's probably the argument that if Vince was really down for creating the Un-American gimmick because he thought Lance Storm and Christian were boring, why not just give them this over-the-top, stable just to get them heat? That's one thing you got to credit Vince for. Is this patriotic stuff, this nationalism stuff. It really does get the fans invested. So that's probably the silver lining of it. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much standard stuff with Lance Storm and Christian, just isolating Goldust. There was a really nice concerto that Goldust actually ducked, and then he made the hot tag to Booker T. Somehow, some way, the referee got knocked down by Lance Storm. Lance Storm was going for his sideways kick, and then all of a sudden Test came out while the referee was knocked down, delivered the big boot to Booker T, and the Un-Americans retained. But yeah, what this match did was it was kind of a break from the one-on-one festival of classic matches, and it just gave you that tag team match where you're emotionally invested, hot crowd, hot tags, just a lot of heat for the Un-Americans. So yeah, I still thought it was really good. Arguably the worst match of the night, but still a lot of fun though. All right, next up for the Intercontinental Championship, we got Chris Benoit, the Intercontinental Champion, taking on Rob Van Dam. All right, so not really any storyline stuff here at all. This is how it went down. On July 29th, when Benoit was still on Raw, he actually beat Van Dam for the Intercontinental Championship. He actually beat him with his foot on the ropes. And he defected to SmackDown with the Intercontinental Championship. And it was, part of the stipulation was that whoever won the IC title, it would become Raw's property. If Van Dam won it, and it would become SmackDown's property. If Chris Benoit retained the belt, so you have Stephanie and Bischoff watching this match on a monitor backstage, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, obviously I love this match. This is probably my two favorite wrestlers of all time, arguably. So you guys know I loved it. And it's really the only time we ever got to see RVD and Benoit. These two matches right here, the one in July and then this SummerSlam classic right here. But yeah, I loved it, man. I really did. I think what makes this match special is the mixing of styles. Benoit is really smart. He had this line where he was talking about Flair and Bret. He was like, yeah, it'd be boring if everybody wrestled like Flair. It'd be boring if everybody wrestled like Bret Hart. I mean, that's what makes wrestling great is the different styles. Other guys like Shawn and Triple H, I think they were very critical of Van Damme's style because he never really adapted to the WWE style, but Benoit just loved it. He loved the stiffness of Van Damme. He loved that he was a little bit different, and you could just tell right from the beginning, like Benoit just said, just kick the crap out of me, and Van Damme was just kicking him hard as hell, and I just thought it was really stiff. Benoit just had a certain type of crispness to everything he was doing here. So this is the match where Jim Ross actually says, the crispness of Benoit. I mean, Benoit was just, you would think he would go to work on Van Damme's legs because of the educated feet, but he was really going to work on the shoulder, just like Eddie. Because when you apply the crossface, you're really, immobilizing the arm and the shoulder. So he was really doing a lot of great work on Van Damme's arms here. He was actually using his arms against them, and then he actually applied it to a hammerlock, and he started doing the rolling Northern Lights suplexes. I love the rolling Northern Lights. I mean, this is the best example of someone going out there and doing the rolling Northern Lights suplexes. I think Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks likes to do this as well. So I'm not sure if Matt Jackson actually is a fan of this match, but it would make sense because that's kind of become one of his things, is the rolling Northern Lights suplexes. Eddie actually busted out a Northern Light to counter the execution in the match with Edge. I just wanted to point that out. So you almost wonder, was Eddie and Benoit, were they hanging out before SummerSlam? It would definitely make sense. But yeah, I just thought it was great stuff. I mean, the crowd reaction wise, I think it could have been a little bit better. This one fan pissed me off. This guy sounded like a dumbass. He just has this New York accent, and he shouts out, "Benoit, you're boring. Benoit, you're boring." So I don't know. I hate that. But it's one of those things where it's almost like Jordan, like Michael Jordan to be exact. Like if you talk shit about Benoit, at least in the ring, like people will call you out for it because he's just so well respected in the ring. I mean, obviously, what happened, but the guy, I mean, Benoit looked like the best wrestler in the world out there. Like just the stuff he was doing, like that. This is the kind of match that really separated, Benoit from a guy like Angle. Just the dissection of, RVD's body parts here. But yeah, Van Damme was great. Van Damme was still really over, even though you could clearly tell the fans were a little bit, still warming up to Benoit, maybe a little bit burned at this time in the crowd. But, some of the cross bodies that Van Damme pulled off were awesome. The frog splash into the crossface was a great spot. The release German suplex when, Benoit actually counters the spinning heel kick into a release German and Van Damme lands right on his neck. I thought that was cool. Even some really good stuff out of the Rolling Thunder. I mean, I could go on and on about this match. I love this match. It's just a shame that this is the only time you got, Benoit and RVD. The problem is, like, they were always on separate shows. Even when Benoit made the jump to Raw, Van Damme went back to SmackDown. And then, obviously, they were injured a little bit. When Van Damme was injured, they never got to touch that ECW One Night Stand. I think, really, that's the only time I ever heard Van Damme mention Benoit. I think RVD actually evaluated the One Night Stand card, and he touched on how Eddie and Benoit were going to have the best match that they ever had, which wasn't the case. But, that's really it. This is really this is the last time you saw RVD and Benoit touch, and it was such a special combination. But, yeah, bottom line is, I love the ending. Benoit did a really good counter of the monkey flip, and he actually was about to give RVD a backdrop suplex. Van Damme actually counters it into a crossbody, and then he hits the frog splash from the other turnbuckle, and he lands right on Benoit. Usually when Van Damme would hit the frog splash, like, he would bounce right off him. This is one time where he actually just stayed on him, and he actually lost his... One of the few times where Van Damme lost his ponytail, and you saw him with the full head of hair. It looked pretty cool, looked different. Yeah, and it really got RVD ready to take on Triple H. So he brings the IC title over the Raw and really made him look strong. You know, to survive against somebody like Benoit really, I think gave him a lot of credibility going into Unforgiven, where he would get the title shot against Triple H. So yeah, awesome stuff. I probably like the match a lot more than most people, but I think everybody could agree, like from a technical standpoint, it really delivered, and it was just a really good showcase for both guys. Okay, next up we got The Undertaker taking on the Un-American Test. So this was cool. I like the booking here. I actually really enjoyed this match. I didn't think it was the... I think you could definitely argue that it was the worst thing of the night, but I still thought it was really good, though. You know, it was really a really one of the most natural transitions to a babyface turn I've ever seen before. So it's the Un-American versus the American Badass. And it was really one of the few times where the American Badass character had a great payoff. So a good matchup, too. It's a big man versus big man match. Biggest match I think Test has ever had. I think the Stephanie McMahon lover or leaver match with Shane, that was probably the most memorable story I think Test was ever involved in. I think Test's best match ever is the match he had with Edge at Survivor Series 2001, the unification IC US title match. But this is by far, I think, you know, the biggest spotlight Test ever had on a big show. You know, this is almost a triple main event for Test at a SummerSlam. So yeah, I mean, people have mixed feelings on Test, you know, because of the the abuse he did to his body with the steroids and, you know, I guess drugs. You know, he passed away, which is a shame. I did think Test had a lot of potential. What I didn't know was apparently Russo was actually pitching Test to be into Generation X because, you know, you could argue that he's like a better looking, younger version of Kevin Nash because he was so jacked up with the long blonde hair. But I think what Russo wasn't realizing was I think he's just too similar to Triple H. I think when you look at Test and Triple H, you know, you could argue that both of them look like they could be brothers. So I think more than anything, I think that's why the idea was nixed. Then you hear certain things where if someone really lobbies hard for somebody backstage, it actually hurts them. So maybe that's why Test was a little bit, you know, maybe that hurt his career a little bit. But I think Test is an underrated worker. I've always been a pretty big fan of Test, to be honest with you, even though he did have some goofy moments, you know, backstage with Trish and Stacy and everything. But for the most part, I thought this was a good spot for Test. Now, he looked a little bit uncomfortable coming out with the Un-American flag. You know, it's a little bit easier when you're coming down with Lance and Christian. But, you know, this time, like the spotlight solely being on him as he's walking with the upside down flag, he looked a little bit uncomfortable. I'll definitely say that about it. But yeah, I thought the match was good. You know, the interference from the Un-Americans, it almost made it look like Taker was fighting three guys at 3-on-1 handicap match. So it really made Taker look strong. You know, Taker was about to go into arguably the most important program of his career with Brock coming up. I mean, so they really made Taker look great here. But I thought it was good, though. You had some really good kick-outs here. You know, Test kicking out of the choke slam. You know, that was a pretty good near fall. And then once the Un-Americans came out, Test actually hit the big boot and Taker kicked out of it. I thought that was one of the better near falls of the whole night. I really thought it came off good. And then, you know, because, you know, Taker couldn't get him up for the last ride, he actually hit him with the tombstone to put him away. One of the few times where the American Badass would do the tombstone. The tombstone was always more of a dead man thing. But I liked it, though. I liked this variation of the American Badass for Undertaker. You know, he got himself a haircut. He got in shape. I just felt like, you know, Mark Calloway at this point was being himself. And especially like from a wrestling standpoint, I felt like he had more creative freedom to do what he wanted to do in the ring. I just feel like sometimes when people see a review where you know, the dead man Undertaker is in the main event, I think a lot of people find it too gimmicky and they're really not that interested in it. I find anything that Mark Calloway Undertaker did when he was just being himself and had more freedom, I find that Undertaker to be a lot more interesting. So that's why I enjoyed it. Plus, you see Undertaker actually holding up the American flag the proper way. And yeah, it was probably one of the better non-wrestling moments of this pay-per-view. You know, they actually have Taker on the DVD cover on the back with the American flag. It was definitely one of the highlights of the show. So definitely thumbs up there. Still arguably with the worst match of the night. You could definitely argue that Test was the worst worker on this show, but I still think that says a lot about the talent that this show had. Okay, next up we have the match of the night. By far the most memorable thing on this show. We have the non-sanctioned match between Shawn Michaels and Triple H. This is the comeback match for Shawn Michaels. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm still going to say the video package here is the best thing that WWE has ever produced in terms of, these video packages. It still gets your blood flowing. They told a great story, the story of jealousy, two friends, now enemies, Triple H turning on Shawn Michaels. And I'm trying to kind of put this into context here. In a lot of ways, it really is symbolic that, the momentum that Triple H lost was incredible. Because I think at first, when he came back, obviously he was treated like a god. They pushed Triple H over Austin. They pushed him over everybody to the main event of WrestleMania. And then Hogan kind of overshadowed the push. And I just remember, like, a lot of people bitching on the internet that whole year that, Triple H sucks as a face. He's a natural heel. And they kept teasing the heel turn, time and time, before Backlash, even at the end of Backlash. But, Triple H never made the turn, not until you get to this D-Generation X reunion where, Shawn Michaels convinces Triple H to join Raw and come to his buddies with Kevin Nash and the NWO. But, Nash goes down and, it's just funny to think about how different this card would have been had Nash survived. It probably would have been Nash versus Triple H. But I don't know. I'm really not sure how this card would have played out if Austin doesn't walk out, if Nash never goes down. This is one thing you could say is this is just a much different card. And, some people have even speculated that the Shawn Michaels thing was more of an emergency than anything. I don't think he was supposed to wrestle on the show at all. But yeah, the bottom line is, I don't think it was. I think Shawn had a lot to do with it as well. I remember him talking about, he became a Christian. In the Bible, it actually stated that, if you have a talent, it's very important to be able to showcase that talent. So I think just a lot of things were going on with Shawn. Plus, I think more than anything, I just think he healed up. You want to say it's because he became a Christian, that he became a much better person, easier to deal with. But I just think a lot of it had to do with, the hiatus. I think not being part of the grind of the business where so much pressure and, you have to take all these things just to stay healthy and to get through all these matches. I just think taking that break, the same way it did for Jordan, I just think it helped him, emotionally and just all around to become a better person. So yeah, like I was saying, guys, the video package is just incredible. It definitely gets the juices flowing. Really, Triple H in the build-up here actually attacked Shawn Michaels in a parking lot and put him through the car window shield, and Shawn was all bloodied up. Yeah, it seems a little bit over the top, but it really worked in the video package though. Like when they had this device that actually, gave you a better view of who it actually was, and then Shawn goes like, "It was you, Hunter," and then he just says, "Doctors told me I'm going to be just fine. Say come SummerSlam," and then that SummerSlam music starts, the fight theme. It just worked out really well. And I think what more than anything, the video package did a beautiful job of just showing people that never got to watch Shawn Michaels all the great clips. You saw all these amazing clips of just Shawn being athletic and stealing the show. And you just see the morph, the Triple H just kind of morphing into this monster villain, that at one point he was sucking up to Shawn and just kind of using Shawn. Then all of a sudden he becomes like this egomaniac where he's like, yeah, I'm the showstopper. I'm the main event. I'm the icon. HBK is dead. It just worked out really well. So if you haven't seen the video package, I think it really elevated the crowd for this show. And Jerry Lawler even, this is one of the first times where anyone has ever said the words, wow, when you come back from the video package. I don't think it's ever happened, but Jerry actually said, wow, right before the match. So, yeah, you know, Shawn actually wrestles in jeans here. I think him doing that, I think it kind of lowered the expectations a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, the actual match, I just thought they told a really good story. I mean, it's really the only match that got over 20 minutes. They went 27 minutes. By far, this went 10 minutes longer than anything the whole night. So they really had a little bit more time than anybody else to just take their time and let this whole thing unfold. I think, you know, Triple H's work, and Triple H looked good here. He definitely looked like he lost some muscle. It really, this is one match where it really looked like the Triple H of 2001, 2000, where, yeah, he was jacked up, but he was still lean and he can move a little bit better here. He wasn't carrying that monster muscle mass that he was carrying back at No Way Out 2002, where he could barely even move. But yeah, I mean, just some of the, and you got to give Triple H credit. You know, I think he even told Shawn Michaels' mother and his wife that, you know, be extra careful. And, you know, it wasn't like Shawn took any vicious bumps on the back here. He wasn't taking bumps on the caskets or bumps through tables. He was very careful about, you know, protecting his back. Even the one suplex, he actually suplexed Triple H to the point where he would actually get out of the way on the landing so he wouldn't hit his back. So I love that part about the match, that Shawn was trying to protect his back. But at the same time, Triple H did some pretty, you know, convincing work on the back. The backbreakers on the back, the steel chair shots to the back were just really, really, you know, convincing. You know, the selling from Shawn was definitely on point. I don't think we've seen anyone sell a back injury better than Shawn Michaels. So, but yeah, and then the tide just turned. I love the Earl Hebner stuff. What the Earl, if you want to gripe about the Earl stuff, I think you need to keep in mind at WrestleMania 14, before Shawn goes out, he actually says, "This is for you, Earl," because I think Earl was actually in the hospital. So he dedicated the match to Earl Hebner. So it really shows you the bond that Shawn and Earl Hebner had over the years, that Earl would actually go to bat for him and just tell Triple H, knock it off with the chairs, knock it off. I'm sick of it. And, you know, Earl and Triple H always had great tension together. Even in that Jericho title switch, it was pretty awesome. And they showcased it here. You know, Shawn just hit the super kick out of nowhere to get Triple H all bloody. And then it was just a beatdown. You know, both Triple H and Shawn were able to have their heat segments. And, yeah, I mean, the ending is just beautiful. I think more than anything, what you can really marvel at from this match with Shawn is just the timing. You could be out of the business for 4.5 years, you know, still be able to work the crowd. I think what Vince was really more impressed with Shawn than anything is just the way he worked the crowd on the super kick and just everything, man. He just had the crowd in the palm of his hands. And I'll tell you, these Triple H and Shawn finishes in 2002, they just had these eruptions. And yeah. So the ending, Shawn actually goes for the super kick. Triple H counters into the pedigree, and then Shawn just beautifully does the jackknife pin flawlessly. I mean, the timing on that was just great. You know, no botching. I mean, there is no botches from Shawn throughout this whole match, and I think that's what really made it stand out. It's just you could come back after that much time off and just look that flawless and that you know, that inspiring. So. Yeah, and then the way they ended with Triple H doing the sledgehammer shots. Yeah, it's kind of like if this was going to be Shawn's last match, you'd think they would have let him, you know, celebrate. But I guess the mindset was that Shawn wasn't going to wrestle anymore, so we need to get Triple H some heat. You know, he's going to be the face of Raw. We're just going to hand him this championship. So I just think Triple H was on a mission. He wanted to be the most hated guy ever. And in some ways he was. When you look at it in real life and look at it on the show, you know, this beatdown to Shawn mixed in with Bischoff just giving him the championship belt, you know. I know so many people hated it, but a lot, when you look at Triple H's popularity at the beginning of the year, you know, these are the little things you have to do just to get someone, you know, that much heat or that much hatred. And it definitely worked from that aspect of it. You know, there were some people like Jericho that thought it reeked of WCW, and you could still argue against it, but, you know, but what it did was it really set up Shawn's return for the Elimination Chamber, where I just think what it really did, it left that opening where Shawn just had to get his revenge no matter what, and then it led to that "Don't hunt what you can't kill" promo with Shawn. So yeah, just a beautiful match. You can go on and on about how good it was. It's very Jordan-like. I remember Kevin Nash actually saying to Shawn in that table of 3 with AJ, they were talking about how, Shawn was rumored to come back against AJ, and then Shawn said, yeah, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And Nash was like, it'd be sweet. It's like, if anybody could do it, it'd be you, Jordan. And then Shawn was like, oh, that's very nice of you. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities. And in some ways, I find this match more impressive than Jordan's first game back. The first game back against Indiana, he did not shoot well. He was like 9 for 28, but you could tell the skills were still there. It wasn't until later on, I think the performance against the Knicks, the 55-point game, that came a couple days later. That's when you're like, wow, this is amazing. This guy could take off that much time and still perform that way. But yeah, I just think for that first match back, to have that kind of timing, that kind of magic, that kind of connection with the fans too, because 4.5 years, that's a long ass time. Look at Benoit. Look at Benoit in his match against RVD. For as good as he was there, it felt like a lot of fans forgot about him. He took 13 months off, so it definitely felt like a lot of fans were still warming up to him. But for Shawn to have that kind of buzz after that long, I think that's what makes it more special than anything. And then the main event, we got The Rock defending the Undisputed Championship against the 2002 King of the Ring, Brock Lesnar. Okay, this is one of the best jobs I think Vince did of promoting a main event ever. He was always great at promoting these SummerSlam, marketing SummerSlam main events. But yeah, this might have been the best one in terms of promotion. I mean, the Brock versus Rock, it was easy to promote. The two NCAA champions, Brock Lesnar won the Amateur Wrestling NCAA Championship in 2000. I believe The Rock actually won the 1990, he was part of the 1991 Miami Hurricanes championship team. So yeah, in some ways, I kind of wish they went in this direction for Angle and Lesnar with all the training collages, the Rocky IV inspired training montages. It was great stuff, man. I mean, Rock running up those steel steps at the University of Miami, it almost made me jealous because, I love doing that. I really feel like it definitely gives you an advantage on the competition running up those steps. But yeah, the ones that Rock was running up to, it's like I do it out of high school, so there's only 20 stairs, but the Rock looked like he had about 50 stairs to play with before he had to, start running downhill. But, it's a great exercise. You just got to be careful on the calves because it's a lot of pressure, especially when you run downhill. But yeah, I love the training stuff. Rock going, doing all this different plyometric training, running from side to side. The spots where Rock is actually jumping up those steps. It was really, really cool stuff to see. They actually showed Brock taking an ice bath, running with logs. The push-ups with the chairs so you could get more more depth on the push-ups. So yeah, I love the training montage here, and it really got you excited for the match because I really thought the build-up here kind of sucked. I think people actually agree with me at the pay-per-view parties. We're like, the build-up really didn't have a lot to it. I mean, really the most memorable thing of the build-up is when Brock is actually mocking The Rock while Benoit had him in the crossface. That stuff actually worked out really well. And the video package here was this is another video package that just really hid how bland the feud was. I mean, the feud really was just predicated on The Rock just, going up to Brock and Paul Heyman and saying, just bring it, calling Paul Heyman a walrus. I mean, there really wasn't a lot to it, but once you got down to the match, it's you really wanted to see this thing. It was really something to see. So, so my biggest gripe with this thing, looking back on it, I just wish there was a way for, Rock and Vince to really hide the fact, that Rock is going to go back to Hollywood. Obviously, he had to go run down and make the rundown right after this match. But, I just wish there was a way where it wouldn't have leaked. And the funny thing is, I didn't even have the internet at the time. I remember, and this was a really memorable week. Ironically, I spent the whole week in the city. I was at my dad's apartment in Harlem, actually. And I was going back and forth visiting my grandma at the hospital for special surgery. And then I was doing these next level workouts with my dad's friend who runs Big Apple Basketball. So it was really cool. I really had a lot of fun that week, and especially looking forward to SummerSlam that whole weekend. But, going on the internet, what really had me deflated was that, The Rock is leaving. He's going to make a movie. This is it for The Rock. And yeah, I don't think that was the sole reason, but I think that had a lot to do with the negativity The Rock got here. I mean, and I think one of the other things was, especially in this match, The Rock had a very sports entertainment oriented style, like a lot of slaps. I mean, he really is a lot more like Cena and Hogan, I would say, than even Austin, especially in the ring. I would definitely say Rock, he's a little bit more like Austin on the mic, with the trash talking and all that stuff, but definitely in the ring. I would compare Rock. More of a natural comparison is Cena and Hogan. So I think the fans are a little bit burned out on The Rock being a babyface. I definitely think he needed to turn heel. I think he wanted to turn heel, but we would get it down the road. But let's not take away from how awesome The Rock was in the summer of 2002. I mean, it was short lived. He did save the summer. I think. What also hurt The Rock here is like, in the video packages, he's saying, all I care about is being the absolute best. And then you're leaving to make a movie. I think that made him feel a little bit hypocritical in the fans, in the eyes of the fans. And then on top of that, he came back, after Austin walked out and he said, if you don't want to be here, then get the F out. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now you're leaving. So now The Rock is leaving. So he's not really living up to those words where, he's that committed. Is he more committed to Hollywood or is he more committed to, being home, as he said in the WWF? So it's just something to think about. I think maybe all those things combined really kind of factored into the reaction The Rock got here. But the bottom line is the match is a lot of fun. It didn't get too much time, but it's 15 minutes of just breathtaking action. This it's funny here. Like when you look at the size discrepancy between Brock and Rock, it really reminds me of Rock versus Punk. Rock was a lot more jacked up when he faced Punk. And for whatever reason, Rock's body type really looked a little bit more like Punk against in this match here with Brock, because Brock was just a specimen here. He was just so jacked up, so fast, so mobile. And yeah, I mean, they just had a great match. I mean, from a crowd reaction standpoint, I think the crowd really made it unique. It made it entertaining. And I think when you look from Brock's standpoint, I think I thought he looked awesome. He just did so many feats of strength on The Rock that were just really, really impressive. The nip up spot was really cool. The counter to the Rock bottom was awesome. The Brock bottom spot was cool. But I think, 25 years is, the youngest champion ever. He's still very young. You're still learning. I think the one knock on Lesnar in this match is just the overselling. I don't know. I don't know if he just wasn't used to it at the time, or maybe he had to make up for the lack of strength from The Rock. Because I thought Rock looked great here, but he just looked a little bit skinny. Like he looked like he was more fast and strong. So it really looked like The Rock. It really looked like Brock was overselling for The Rock on multiple occasions, really jumping up for the Rock bottom. One of the slaps, it looked like he just jumped out of the ring. So, but hey, when you're 25 years old, I mean, I think a lot of the mistakes are going to be a little bit more, visible than Brock Lesnar, in his 40s, where he's a little bit more seasoned and he could hide those mistakes. But yeah, I just thought the match was a nice roller coaster ride. I mean, Paul Heyman taking the Rock bottom was really cool. Rock actually even goes to check on him, so I thought that was good stuff. I mean, the setup into the with Brock actually breaking up the people's elbow, that's probably the most memorable spot in the match. But then you had some really good sequences from the F5 into the Rock bottom. I mean, Rock just got a ton of heat. It was almost like hatred at some points. But I and it's funny, like The Rock wasn't getting booed like this on SmackDown or Raw leading up to the show. But I just think this environment, this Nassau Coliseum, it's not your typical Nassau fan base. Nassau had a reputation for being very quiet, very dead. But I just think this is a very New York crowd, and I think a lot of the fan base, a lot of these internet fans were just. This was really like Cena before Cena. It really was. That's really the only way I could compare it. But bottom line is, I think everybody went home happy. And to be honest with you, man, I really wasn't sold on Brock until this match. I was a little bit deflated when I heard The Rock was leaving because I wanted Rock to win this match because I wasn't sold on Brock. I really wasn't sold on Brock until how good he looked in this match, especially on the offensive end. Yeah, I mean, the selling from Brock was a little bit awkward to watch even now, but from an offensive standpoint, I thought Brock looked awesome, and I really wasn't sold on him until this match. And I think the fans kind of manipulated me too. You know, there was a lot of "Let's go Lesnar" chants, and yeah, fans really got behind Brock here, and you know, they wanted to see it. And I don't really know if anyone has gotten over this quickly to the point where you're going to make him a babyface less than 6 months in. So yeah, Brock earned a lot of people's respect quite fast, and you know, the ending was really well done. You know, a lot of the sequences from the rock bottom into the F5 were very well done. Looking back on it, I mean, it takes a lot of skill and preparation for a 25-year-old not to fuck that up. And I thought Brock did a beautiful job. The ending with the F5 and him just like looking at the championship like he accomplished something major, something good. You know, Brock's passion here was great, and he looked hungry, looked motivated, looked determined, and yeah, in some ways, this is the most explosive version of Brock we ever got. So yeah, I definitely think the match holds up. I know Meltzer was a little bit harsh on this main event, but I still thought this was a 4-star match, and without a doubt, I would actually say this is my favorite pay-per-view ever. You know, I probably still like it more than any Ring of Honor show. I think I like it better than any WrestleMania. You know, WrestleMania 17 would be the closest. You know, WrestleMania 17 is a much different show. But I just feel like this SummerSlam 2002 doesn't have as much filler, and it just has a little bit more attractive, you know, depth than I think WrestleMania 17. But sometimes I go back and forth. But you know, WrestleMania 17 will be the closest show to SummerSlam 2002. At least from the WWE Spectrum side of things. But yeah, awesome show. So yeah, if you want to nitpick about one thing, or a couple of things from this show, it'd be the Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon segments. I got to say, they were not good. They were cringeworthy. They were awkward. I thought Stephanie looked hot as hell here. Like this might have been my favorite version of Steph in terms of her looks. But yeah, I mean, she just was very... Like the Get Him Benoit line was almost cringeworthy, but you know, it was cool. You know, Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon really trying to play up the Raw versus SmackDown. It almost felt like Vince was determined to make Raw versus SmackDown, you know, better than the Invasion. Like it almost kind of had that feel to it. There's a Rest in Peace Hulkamania thing where they're promoting the Hulk Hogan Hulk Still Rules DVD, and then Paul Heyman's like, you see, that means Hulkamania is dead. You know, that's what you do to someone that's dead, a best of compilation. So that was really cool. Brock seemed like he was so focused. It looked like everything Paul Heyman said went through one ear and right out the other. Our season never ends. I forgot about this at the time, but apparently baseball almost went on strike, and WWE was kind of rubbing it in, saying our season never ends. We don't have contract disputes. So that was really cool. There's a Jamie Noble and Nydia skit from The World, WWF New York, where Nydia actually does a makeout contest. I got to say, check out the Bruce Pritchard podcast. He did an awesome Jamie Noble impersonation. Just came out of nowhere, but Jamie Noble's pretty easy to impersonate. I really think he's one of the easier guys to impersonate. But that just shows you the depth that Jamie Noble had. You know, you just kind of wish that he had more of a chance to work with some of the non-cruiserweights because he's very multidimensional, very talented. You know, when Nydia was making out with the guy, he's like, go, kiss and give her some of that tongue. But yeah, check out Bruce's impersonation of him. It's a lot better than mine. My Ring of Honor Jamie Noble impersonation is a little bit better. But yeah, all right, some more Get the F Out promos. Lillian Garcia kicks Howard Finkel, kicks the Fink into Dink Dink with Trish Stratus actually coming out to help him. So you had the Howard Finkel heel turn. That wasn't great. But I'll tell you what, the Bischoff and Stephanie stuff, yeah, it almost kind of hurts the show a little bit, doesn't it? It's so awkward. Even Bruce Pritchard was just saying it just didn't age well. They just had no chemistry that night. But Shit doesn't matter to me. I really don't give a shit. This is still an amazing show from top to bottom. We've never had this. You know, WWE's never really been able to top this. You know, the closest I thought they came to topping it was SummerSlam 2005. I mean, I thought they almost did it. You know, you had a little bit of weak links on that show with Orlando Jordan in the opener and JBL in the title match. But, you know, that's probably the closest time I thought they came to actually, you know, mimicking a show of this magnitude in terms of talent and depth. But we'll see if they could ever top it again. It'll be tough to recreate this kind of talent pool. But it just shows you how different this show would have been if Austin doesn't walk out and if Kevin Nash, you know, doesn't get injured. You know, the show probably doesn't end up being this good. But that's pretty much it, guys. That's SummerSlam 2002. You know, I wanted to say it's easy to review a show like this because, you know, you love everything about it. But I'm thinking now the show's so good that I've actually felt a little bit of pressure to do it justice. But yeah, I think that is the case. Like, if you love a show that much, it should be easy to do. Like, if you love a girl that much, it should be easy to write a 10-page letter to a girl you really love. And you know, for a show like this, it shouldn't be hard to review a show if you really love it. So hopefully it came out all right. 20th anniversary of SummerSlam 2002. That's it for SummerSlam season. So yeah, I mean, with SummerSlam season, obviously it wasn't as fun as last year. We focused on a lot of the better SummerSlams last summer, and I just think it made for more exciting videos, better reviews. This one, we kind of focused on some of the lesser, you know, older, but, you know, SummerSlams that didn't really hold up as well. So yeah, it wasn't as fun. I mean, but, you know, we could focus on a lot of the John Cena related SummerSlams next year. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more fun next summer. But hey, we ended it with a bang. You know, the mother of all SummerSlams, you know, you might even say the mother of all shows in SummerSlam 2002. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm out. All right.